Be true to yourself, the wisdom of Ralph Waldo Emerson in modern life.
Introduction. Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Teru Nakashima, a psychological counselor and educator from Japan, and I'm delighted to be speaking with you today about a philosophy that has profoundly shaped my approach to life and my work with clients. Today, we're exploring one of the most powerful concepts from the American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson, the idea of being true to yourself. In his seminal essay, Self-Reliance, Emerson wrote, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." These words, written in the 19th century, carry perhaps even more significance in our modern world. Ralph Waldo Emerson was a leading voice in American transcendentalism, a philosophical movement that emphasized individual intuition, the divinity of nature, and the importance of self reliance. His ideas have influenced countless thinkers, writers, civil rights activists, and even modern business leaders. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, was deeply influenced by Emerson's ideas on individualism. In Japan, Yukichi Fukusawa, who helped modernize Japan during the Meiji era, drew inspiration from Emerson's emphasis on independent thinking. And in recent times, President Barack Obama has repeatedly referenced Emerson's philosophy in his speeches about American resilience and self determination. In the next 30 minutes, we'll explore what it truly means to be faithful to yourself, why this concept remains vital in our modern world, and how we can practically apply Emerson's wisdom to create lives of genuine fulfillment and purpose.
Part 1. Emerson's Philosophy of Self-Reliance.
Let's begin by understanding the core of Emerson's philosophy. What does it actually mean to be true to yourself? In his essay Self Reliance, published in 1841, Emerson argued against conformity and for the supreme importance of trusting one's own instincts and ideas. He wrote, "What I must do is all that concerns me, not what the people think." This statement reflects his belief that we must follow our own internal compass rather than being guided by public opinion or societal expectations. Emerson further emphasized, "Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind." For him, the greatest sin was not some external transgression, but betraying your own authentic nature, what he called self betrayal. He believed that each individual has unique insights and gifts to offer the world, but these can only emerge when we have the courage to trust ourselves. Perhaps his most famous line from Self Reliance captures this perfectly. "Trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string." Emerson believed that deep within each of us is an intuitive knowledge of our own path, what he called the aboriginal self, or the gleam of light that shines through us. When we honor this inner knowing, we access our greatest power and authenticity. But Emerson was not advocating for mere selfishness or isolation. Rather, he believed that by being true to ourselves, we make our greatest contribution to humanity. As he wrote, "A man is relieved and gay when he has put his heart into his work and done his best. But what he has said or done otherwise shall give him no peace." In other words, our truest joy and peace come from expressing our authentic nature in service to the world. Emerson also acknowledged how difficult this path can be. For nonconformity, the world whips you with its displeasure, he warned. Yet he insisted that the rewards of self trust far outweigh the temporary discomfort of standing apart from the crowd. "To be great is to be misunderstood," he famously wrote, suggesting that truly original thinkers and authentic individuals will always face some degree of resistance or misinterpretation. The essence of Emerson's self reliance is perhaps best captured in this quote: Insist on yourself, never imitate. Every great man is unique. He believed that imitation is suicide, that when we copy others or try to fit ourselves into prescribed roles, we kill something essential within us. Instead, Emerson encouraged us to discover and express our unique genius, which he saw as our greatest gift to the world.
Part 2. The challenge of self-trust in modern society.
Now, let's consider why Emerson's wisdom about self trust is perhaps even more relevant today than it was in his time. Emerson wrote, "Society everywhere is in conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members." While his language reflects his 19th century context, his insight remains profoundly true. Social forces constantly pressure us to conform, to doubt our own perceptions, and to abandon our authentic nature in favor of acceptance and approval. In our digital age, this conspiracy has taken on new dimensions. Social media platforms constantly invite us to compare our unfiltered lives to others' carefully curated presentations. Algorithms feed us content designed to shape our desires and beliefs. Advertising messages bombard us with suggestions of how we should look, what we should own, and who we should be. Studies show that the average American now sees between 4,000 to 10,000 advertisements daily, each one subtly or overtly suggesting that we are somehow incomplete without something external. Is it any wonder that brighter rates of anxiety, depression, and feelings of inadequacy have reached epidemic levels? Emerson seemed to anticipate this modern predicament when he wrote, "The objection to conforming to usages that have become dead to you is that it scatters your force. It loses your time and blurs the impression of your character." How many of us feel this scattering of our energy, this blurring of our character, as we try to keep up with countless external expectations? Even more challenging, our modern world often rewards conformity while punishing authenticity. Corporate cultures frequently value culture fit over original thinking. Social media algorithms amplify popular opinions while burying dissenting views. And the increasing polarization of our society makes it risky to express nuanced perspectives that don't align neatly with predefined positions. Yet, as Emerson warned, your genuine action will explain itself and will explain your other genuine actions. Your conformity explains nothing. When we abandon our authentic voice to blend in, we lose not only our power, but our ability to make a meaningful contribution to the conversation. The paradox of our connected age is that even as we have more ways to express ourselves than ever before, many of us feel increasingly alienated from our true nature, what Emerson might call our divine idea. As he observed, most men have bound their eyes with one or another handkerchief and attached themselves to some one of these communities of opinion. Today, these communities of opinion exist as echo chambers, social media bubbles, and ideological tribes that further separate us from the quiet voice of our own intuition.
Part 3. Practical steps to cultivate self-trust.
How then do we reclaim our self trust in this challenging context? Let me share some practical approaches inspired by Emerson's philosophy and integrated with modern psychological understanding. First, Emerson advises us to listen to our inner voice. A man should learn to detect and watch that gleam of light which flashes across his mind from within. This means creating space for solitude and reflection, something increasingly rare in our hyperconnected world. Consider establishing a daily practice of quiet contemplation, journaling, or meditation. Even 10 minutes of genuine stillness can help reconnect you with your internal guidance system. Second, Emerson encourages us to act on our convictions. Do your work, and I shall know you. Do your work, and you shall reinforce yourself. Self trust grows through action. When we act on our authentic impulses and values, even in small ways, we strengthen our connection to our inner wisdom. Start with small decisions that honor your values. Then gradually extend this authenticity to larger life choices. Third, Emerson reminds us to view failure differently. Our strength grows out of our weakness. When we falter or make mistakes while following our authentic path, these are not failures but valuable lessons that develop our character and refine our understanding. Practice self compassion when things don't go as planned and ask, what is this teaching me about myself and my path? In my work as a psychological counselor, I've developed a framework that complements Emerson's wisdom, what I call the six senses of self affirmation, which I like to compare to the growth of a tree. Self worth, roots, the fundamental belief in your inherent value, regardless of external achievements. Self acceptance, just trunk, embracing your whole self, including your imperfections and limitations. Self efficacy, branches, confidence in your ability to affect outcomes in your life. Self reliance, leaves, trust in your capacity to guide your own life based on internal wisdom. Self determination, flowers, the ability to make choices aligned with your authentic values. Self usefulness, fruits, the sense that your unique gifts contribute meaningfully to others. Notice how Emerson's concept of self reliance sits at the center of this framework, like the leaves that transform sunlight into nourishment for the entire tree. When we cultivate these six senses, we build a robust internal structure that supports authentic living. Another practical approach is to regularly audit your life for alignment. Emerson suggests the voyage of the best ship is a zigzag line of 100 tacks. This means we must constantly reassess and adjust our course. Ask yourself, Santot, which activities energize me and which deplete me? Where in my life am I acting from authenticity and where am I conforming to others' expectations? What small changes could bring my daily life into greater alignment with my true nature? Finally, Emerson advises us to find courage in the universal. In self trust, all the virtues are comprehended. When you honor your authentic impulses, you're not being selfish. You're accessing the universal wisdom that flows through all humans. You're not alone in your authentic expression. You're participating in the grand human tradition of creative self discovery that connects us all. As Emerson beautifully stated, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. The journey towards self trust begins with the recognition that your internal compass, though it may have been ignored, has always been there, waiting for you to consult it.
Part 4. Self Trust in Action. Examples and applications.
Let's look at how Emerson's philosophy of self trust has manifested in the lives of influential individuals and how we might apply similar principles in our everyday lives. Consider Martin Luther King Jr., whose iconic I Have a Dream speech echoes Emerson's emphasis on moral courage and self trust. When King said, I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed, he was exhibiting what Emerson called the courage to follow one's inner conviction despite external resistance. King's philosophy of nonviolent resistance to injustice resonates deeply with Emerson's teaching about the courage to act on what one believes is right. When King famously stated, the time is always right to do what is right, he was channeling Emerson's belief in following the voice of conscience above all else. Steve Jobs, the visionary co founder of Apple, exemplified Emerson's self trust in the business world. In his famous 2005 Stanford commencement address, Jobs advised, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." This directly echoes Emerson's warning against imitation. Jobs continued, "Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice." These could almost be direct quotes from Self-Reliance. Jobs' approach to innovation, trusting his intuition over market research, embodied Emerson's belief that our greatest contributions come when we follow our unique vision. Former President Barack Obama has frequently drawn on Emersonian themes throughout his political career. His campaign slogan, "Yes, we can," reflects Emerson's emphasis on self reliance and the possibility of transformation through collective action founded on individual conviction. In his speeches, Obama often echoed Emerson's sentiment that we are the ones we've been waiting for, that the change we seek comes from within ourselves, not from external saviors or circumstances. In his 2009 inaugural address, when Obama stated, "We have chosen hope over fear, unity of purpose over conflict and discord," he was articulating Emerson's belief in the moral choice to follow one's highest understanding rather than being driven by fear or convention. But self trust isn't just for history making leaders. Emerson himself would argue that each of us has our own genius to express. In practical terms, this might mean the courage to change careers when your current path no longer aligns with your values, even when others question your decision. Speaking your truth in a meeting when everyone else seems to be following a misguided consensus. Creating boundaries around your time and energy that honor your needs, despite social pressure to remain constantly available. Pursuing a creative passion that brings you joy, regardless of whether it produces successful outcomes by conventional standards. Making parenting or relationship choices based on your deepest values rather than trends or others' expectations. Emerson assures us, "Do the thing and you will have the power." When we take even small steps toward authentic self expression, we discover resources within ourselves that we didn't know existed. Each act of self trust builds upon the last, gradually creating a life that reflects our unique contribution to the world.
Conclusion.
As we conclude our exploration of Emerson's wisdom, I invite you to consider how his philosophy of self trust might transform your own life. Remember that being true to yourself isn't about selfishness or isolation. Rather, as Emerson wrote, "It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after our own. But the great man is he who, in the midst of the crowd, keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude." The challenge and the opportunity is to maintain your authentic center even while engaged with the world around you. Emerson offers us this powerful encouragement. What your heart thinks is great is great. The soul's emphasis is always right. Trust that your deepest intuitions and values are worthy guides, even when they lead you away from conventional paths. In a world of increasing noise and distraction, Emerson's call to self trust offers a radical alternative, a return to the wisdom that resides within each of us. As he beautifully expressed it, nothing can bring you peace but yourself. Nothing can bring you peace but the triumph of principles. Today, I encourage you to take one small step toward greater self trust. Listen for that iron string vibrating in your own heart. Act on one authentic impulse. Notice the voice of genuine intuition beneath the chatter of social expectation. As Emerson promised, in this fidelity to your true nature, you will discover not only your greatest accomplishment, but your deepest joy. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, may you have the courage to be faithfully, authentically yourself.
Announcements.
Before we part ways, I'd like to share a few announcements. Next week's podcast will explore another dimension of authentic living: how to maintain your center during times of significant change and transition. If you've enjoyed today's discussion, please consider subscribing to this podcast and sharing it with friends who might benefit. You can also find more resources on authentic living on my website and connect with me on social media for daily inspiration and practical wisdom. And for those interested in exploring these concepts more deeply, I'll be hosting a live online workshop next month called Cultivating Self Trust in a Distracted World. Details can be found on my website. Thank you once again for your time and attention. This is Teru Nakashima wishing you courage on your journey toward authentic self expression. Live on Zoom and everywhere else with the power of self trust.